a Marine kicked down Steven Seagal in front of a crowded bar. The sound of his body hitting the floor echoed through the room like a gunshot. Every conversation stopped. Every head turned. He stood over him, chest puffed out, fists still clenched, and said with a sneer, "Sit down, old man. Your movie days are over." The entire bar went silent. You could hear the hum of the neon beer signs, the distant clink of ice in glasses, the shallow breathing of people too shocked to move. Some pulled out their phones. Others whispered to each other. A few just stared, frozen. But what the Marine didn't know was that Steven wasn't just an actor. He wasn't some Hollywood has-been looking for attention. He wasn't a fake tough guy playing dress up in front of cameras. He was a Navy SEAL commander, a man who had trained some of the most elite warriors on the planet, a man who had seen real combat, real danger, real death, and walked through it all without saying a word. And what happened in the next 10 minutes became legendary in military circles, not because it was loud, not because it was violent, but because of how calm, how controlled, and how devastatingly effective it was. This is a story about respect, about humility, about what happens when arrogance meets experience. And trust me, you won't see this coming. Before we continue, drop a comment and tell me where you're watching from. And if you respect real warriors who stay humble, hit that like button right now. Because what you're about to witness isn't just a fight. It's a masterclass in discipline, honor, and what it truly means to be strong. Let's go. It was a Friday night at the Iron Anchor, a bar known for attracting military personnel on leave. The kind of place where you didn't ask too many questions, where strangers became brothers over a beer and a shared story, where the walls were covered in flags, patches, and photos of fallen heroes. Loud music pounded from the jukebox in the corner, classic rock, the kind that made you nod your head without thinking. Pool tables lined one side of the room, balls clacking as groups of off-duty soldiers and Marines tried to unwind after weeks, sometimes months, of tension. The air smelled like whiskey, fried food, and old leather. Conversations overlapped, laughter, arguments, the occasional toast to someone who wasn't there anymore. At the far corner of the bar sat a man in his 50s, wearing a plain black shirt and jeans. No patches. No insignia, no flashy jewelry. No noise. Steven Seagal. He sat with his back to the wall, the way people do when they've trained themselves to always have an exit in sight. His hands rested calmly on the table. His eyes moved slowly across the room, watching, reading body language, noting exits, assessing threats without even thinking about it. It was automatic, ingrained. He ordered a water, not a beer, not whiskey, just water. The bartender, a grizzled ex-Navy guy with anchor tattoos running up both forearms, gave him a respectful nod and didn't ask questions. Most people in the bar didn't recognize Steven. A few did. Their eyes lingered for a moment, a flicker of recognition crossing their faces. But they said nothing out of respect. They knew better than to bother a man who clearly wanted to be left alone. One older veteran in the corner, wearing a faded Marine Corps cap, glanced over and whispered to his buddy, "That's him. I'm telling you, that's him." His buddy squinted. "Nah, what would he be doing here? I'm serious. I saw him at Coronado back in the day. That's Commander Seagal." "Bullshit. I'm not kidding." But they didn't approach. They just raised their glasses slightly in his direction and went back to their conversation. Steven noticed. He always noticed. He gave the slightest nod back, subtle, almost invisible, and took another sip of water. For about 20 minutes, everything was calm, peaceful even. Then the door slammed open, not pushed. Not casually swung, slammed. The music seemed to dip for a second as heads turned toward the entrance. In walked Sergeant Danny Crow, 6'2", 220 pounds of pure ego and adrenaline, buzzed haircut. Tight black t-shirt that showed off every muscle he'd worked for. Swagger in every step, fresh off deployment, you could tell. Still riding that high of being back on American soil. Still buzzing with the kind of energy that comes from months of pent-up tension finally being released. But there was something else, too. Arrogance. The kind that comes from being young, strong, and convinced the world owes you something. He scanned the room like he owned it, chin up, eyes sharp, looking for someone, anyone, to challenge him. His buddies followed close behind, 3 other Marines, all hyped up, all feeding off each other's energy like a pack. They were loud. Too loud, laughing, slapping each other on the back. Talking over everyone else. "Yo, who's the toughest guy in here?" "Anyone, no one." Danny's voice cut through the bar like a knife. People rolled their eyes. A few shook their heads. Veterans knew the type. Young, overconfident, untested in the ways that actually matter. The kind of guy who thought being strong meant being loud. Who thought respect was something you demanded, not earned. The bartender muttered under his breath, "Here we go." Danny's eyes scanned the room, looking for a target, and then they landed on Stephen, sitting quietly. Alone, unassuming, Danny's face lit up with recognition, not the respectful kind, but the mocking kind. "Hey, old dude in the corner." Stephen didn't respond, just took a slow, deliberate sip of water. "You look familiar. You some washed-up actor or something?" Still nothing. A couple of people in the bar tensed. The older Marine in the corner muttered, "Oh no, not him." Danny took a step closer, emboldened by the silence. "I'm talking to you, Grandpa." Stephen's face remained calm, neutral. Not a flicker of emotion. One of the bartenders, the ex-Navy guy, leaned over the counter and whispered urgently to Danny, "Man, leave him alone. That's not someone you want to mess with." Danny laughed. "Obnoxious. What, because he did some fake kung fu in the 90s, please?" He turned to his buddies. "You guys seeing this? This dude thinks he's tough." They laughed along, but a couple of them looked uncomfortable, like they knew this wasn't going to end well. Danny walked over, boots heavy on the wooden floor. He stood right in front of Stephen's table, casting a shadow over him. "You think you're tough because you pretended to be a SEAL in some movie." Stephen looked up, slowly, calmly. His eyes met Danny's, not with anger, not with challenge, but with something much more unsettling. Presence. The kind that doesn't need words. The kind that comes from years of real experience, real danger, real discipline. And for just a split second, Danny felt it, a flicker of doubt, but his pride wouldn't let him back down. Stephen's voice was quiet, even, almost kind. "I never pretended." Danny blinked. "What?" "I said I never pretended." "Oh yeah, prove it." The bar held its breath. Comment below. Do you think Stephen should have walked away or stood his ground? Let me know. Danny wasn't backing down. His jaw was set. His fists were clenched. His entire body radiated aggression. He leaned forward, putting both hands on Stephen's table, getting right in his face. "Come on, tough guy. Show me what you got. Or are you too old to even stand up?" Stephen slowly stood, no dramatic music, no movie moment, no cracking knuckles or rolling shoulders. Just a man standing to his full height. And suddenly, the energy in the room shifted. It was subtle at first, like the air pressure changing before a storm. People stopped talking, stopped moving. The bartender's hand hovered over the phone under the counter. The older Marine in the corner sat up straighter, his eyes locked on the scene unfolding. Stephen didn't say a word, didn't square up, didn't puff his chest or flex his muscles. He just stood there, hands relaxed at his sides, breathing steady, eyes calm, and somehow, that was more intimidating than anything else. If you're already hooked, drop it in the comments right now. Let me know you're with me. But Danny was too drunk and too proud to notice. Too wrapped up in his own ego to read the room. Too convinced of his own strength to see the danger he was in. "That's what I thought." Danny sneered. "All talk. Just like in your movies." He turned to his buddies and laughed. "This guy's a joke." A few people in the bar winced. One woman whispered to her friend, "This is bad. This is really bad." Danny turned back around, his face twisted with contempt. "Sit back down before you hurt yourself, old man." Then he shoved Stephen, hard right in the chest. Stephen barely moved. His feet stayed planted. His posture didn't change. It was like pushing a brick wall. Danny's eyes widened for a fraction of a second, confusion flickering across his face. But pride wouldn't let him process it. He shoved again. Harder this time, using both hands. Still nothing. Stephen's expression didn't change. No anger, no fear. Just awareness. "What's wrong, old man? Can't fight back?" The bartender stepped forward, voice tight with urgency. "Danny, stop. Seriously. You need to stop right now." "Why? What's he gonna do?" One of Danny's buddies grabbed his shoulder. "Bro, maybe we should just..." Danny shrugged him off violently. "Get off me!" He was past the point of reason now. Past the point of listening. Comment below. Have you ever seen someone make a mistake they couldn't take back? Let's hear your stories. Then it happened. Danny wound up and threw a wild haymaker at Stephen's head. A big, looping punch fueled by alcohol, adrenaline, and rage. In a flash, so fast most people didn't even see it, Stephen sidestepped. Not dramatically. Not with a flourish. Just a simple, economical movement. Danny's fist sailed past Stephen's head, hitting nothing but air. And before Danny could even process what happened, Stephen's hand was on his wrist. Not grabbing. Not squeezing. Just redirecting. He used Danny's own momentum, all that force, all that aggression, and guided it exactly where he wanted it to go. Danny went crashing into a table. Chairs scattered. Bottles fell and shattered on the floor. Glass exploded across the wood. The sound was deafening. The bar went dead silent. Everyone froze. Some people gasped. Others covered their mouths. A few pulled out their phones and started recording. Danny lay there for a moment, stunned, trying to figure out what just happened. His brain couldn't catch up to his body. 1 second he was throwing a punch. The next second he was on the floor surrounded by broken glass. He looked up at Stephen, who stood exactly where he'd been before, calm, composed, hands back at his sides. Not even breathing hard, Danny's face flushed red. Not from pain. From embarrassment. From rage. Type respite if you think Stephen just earned it. You just made a big mistake. Danny hissed through gritted teeth. He scrambled to his feet, glass crunching under his boots, and charged again, this time with real intent. No more playing around. No more testing. He wanted to hurt Stephen now. He came in fast, low, going for a tackle, the kind of move that had worked 100 times in bar fights and training exercises. Stephen didn't move until the last possible second. Then, with surgical precision, he stepped to the side, swept Danny's lead leg, and guided him down to the floor. Not hard. Not violent. Controlled. Danny hit the ground face first, and before he could even think about getting up, Stephen was on him, one knee in the small of his back, one hand controlling his wrist, the other hand gently but firmly pressing his head to the floor. Classic submission hold. Textbook. Clean. Danny struggled, kicked, thrashed, cursed.
Get off me, gate to your heel, off. Moo.
But he couldn't move, couldn't escape, couldn't do anything. Stephen's voice was calm, almost kind. Stop. You're going to hurt yourself.
I say to the off.
Not until you calm down. Danny kept fighting, his breath coming in ragged gasps, spit flying from his mouth, but Stephen didn't apply more pressure. Didn't hurt him. Just held him there waiting. Drop it if you've ever had to de-escalate a situation like this. One of Danny's buddies finally stepped forward, hands up, voice shaking. Let him go, man. Please? He's drunk. He didn't mean it. Stephen looked up, his eyes locking onto the other Marine.
Tell him to stop.
Danny, chill out.
Stop fighting.
But Danny wasn't listening. He was beyond reason now, lost in his own humiliation and rage. The buddy hesitated, then pulled out his phone and made a call, his hands trembling. Yeah, we got a situation at the Iron Anchor. You need to come down here. Now. He paused, listening. No, seriously. It's bad. Danny just attacked. He glanced at Stephen, then lowered his voice. Just get here. Fast. Stephen kept Danny pinned, his grip firm but not cruel. His breathing still steady and controlled. People in the bar stood in stunned silence. Some were recording. Some were whispering. Some just stared, unable to believe what they were seeing. The older Marine in the corner shook his head slowly, a grim smile on his face. Told you, he muttered to his buddy. Told you it was him. Danny finally stopped struggling, his energy spent, his breath coming in gasps, but the look in his eyes said it wasn't over. Not by a long shot. If you're loving this story so far, smash that like button and drop it in the comments. And stay tuned. 10 minutes later, a man in civilian clothes walked into the bar. The door opened slowly this time, no slamming, no noise, but somehow his entrance commanded more attention than Danny's ever did. He was older, maybe late 50s, with graying hair cropped military short, wore a simple button-down shirt and jeans, but carried himself with the kind of authority that doesn't need a uniform. His face was stern, weathered, etched with the lines of someone who'd seen too much and had to make too many hard decisions. His eyes swept the room in one practiced motion, assessing, calculating, understanding the situation before anyone even spoke. Everyone in uniform straightened up immediately. Backs went rigid. Conversation stopped mid-sentence. Even the drunk ones sobered up a little. One Marine near the pool table actually stood at attention. The man's boots clicked against the wooden floor as he walked toward the scene. His jaw was set, his expression unreadable. He stopped a few feet away from where Stephen still had Danny pinned to the floor. Who's the idiot? His voice wasn't loud. Didn't need to be. It cut through the silence like a blade. Danny, still on the floor, face pressed against the wood, tried to explain through gasps and grunts. Sir, I didn't. This guy attacked me. Shut up, Crow. Danny's mouth snapped shut instantly. The man turned his gaze to Stephen, and his expression changed, not dramatically, but something shifted in his eyes. Recognition. Respect. Something deeper. If you can feel the tension building, drop a comment and tell me, what do you think happens next? He straightened fully, and in a voice that carried across the entire bar, said, Commander. Then he snapped to attention, sharp, crisp. Perfect military posture. The entire bar froze. You could have heard a pin drop. Someone's glass slipped from their hand and shattered on the floor, but nobody even turned to look. All eyes were on Stephen. Wait. Danny's voice cracked, barely a whisper. Wait, Commander. Stephen finally released his grip and stood up slowly, brushing off his jeans. His movements were casual, unhurried, like nothing unusual had just happened. The older man extended his hand, his voice filled with genuine respect. Commander Seagal. It's an honor, sir. I didn't know you were in town. Stephen shook his hand firmly. Just passing through Connell. Connell. The word hung in the air like thunder. Danny scrambled to his feet, stumbling slightly, eyes wide with dawning horror. His face had gone from red with anger to pale with shock. You're actually. Stephen turned to him, his expression neutral, but his voice steady and clear. I served 12 years as a CL, instructor at Coronado, deployed 4 times, retired as a lieutenant commander. He paused, letting it sink in. I trained hundreds of operators. Some of them are probably still active. Some of them didn't make it home. The bar was silent except for the hum of the refrigerators and the distant sound of traffic outside. Danny looked like he'd been punched in the gut. His mouth opened, but no words came out. The colonel looked at Danny with an expression of pure disgust. You just assaulted a decorated officer. While drunk? I didn't know. That's not an excuse, Marine. The colonel's voice was ice cold now. You represent the corps. You represent every man and woman who's ever worn this uniform. And you just embarrassed every single one of them. Danny's hand started shaking. His breathing became uneven. One of his buddies took a step back, distancing himself. Type a CCON to Belady if you think Danny deserves what's coming. The colonel continued, his tone sharp and unforgiving. You attacked a superior officer. You were drunk and disorderly. You caused a public disturbance. And worst of all, you showed zero discipline, zero respect, and zero judgment. Sir, I'm sorry. I don't want to hear it right now. The colonel turned slightly, addressing the room. Does anyone else here want to verify the commander's service? For a moment, nobody moved. Then the old veteran in the corner, the one with the faded Marine Corps cap and the Navy trident tattoo on his forearm, stood up slowly. He walked forward, his limp barely noticeable but present. I was at Coronado in '87, he said, his voice gravelly but strong. He looked directly at Stephen. Commander Seagal ran our hand-to-hand combat course, toughest instructor we ever had. Fair, but tough. Didn't tolerate weakness, but never broke a man down without building him back up stronger. He paused, his eyes distant for a moment, remembering. There was a training accident. Boat flipped during a rough water exercise. 2 guys got caught underneath, tangled in the rigging. Everyone froze. But Commander Seagal didn't hesitate. Dove in, pulled them both out, saved their lives. Another veteran across the room nodded. I heard about that. One of those guys was my instructor at BUDS. He told me the story. Said he owed his life to Commander Seagal. A third voice chimed in, a woman sitting near the bar, wearing a Navy veteran cap. My brother trained under you, sir. He's been KIA for 8 years now, but before he deployed the last time, he told me you were the best leader he ever served under. Said you taught him how to stay calm when everything was falling apart. Her voice cracked slightly. He made it home twice because of what you taught him. If this is giving you chills, drop it in the comments. Let's honor the real heroes. Stephen's face softened just a fraction. He nodded at her respectfully. What was his name? Petty Officer James Carver. Stephen closed his eyes briefly. I remember him. Good man. I'm sorry for your loss. She nodded, tears in her eyes, and sat back down. The colonel turned back to Danny, his voice quieter now but no less firm. You see that, Crow? That's what a real warrior looks like. Someone who doesn't brag, doesn't boast, doesn't need to prove anything to anyone, because his actions already spoke. Danny looked down, unable to meet anyone's eyes. Stephen raised a hand. Colonel, it's fine. He didn't know. Let it go. But the colonel shook his head. No, sir. With all due respect, this behavior is unacceptable. He turned to Danny, his voice hard again. You're confined to base pending review. You'll report to your CO first thing tomorrow morning. And you'll be writing a formal apology, not just to the commander, but to everyone in this bar who had to witness your disgrace. Understood. Yes, sir. Danny whispered, his voice barely audible. I can't hear you, Marine. Why, yes. Sir. Danny's voice cracked as he shouted it. The colonel looked back at Stephen. Sir, I apologize on behalf of the United States Marine Corps. This is not who we are, Colonel, Stephen said calmly. He's young. He made a mistake. We've all been there. Not like this, sir. Stephen smiled faintly. Trust me, I've seen worse. The room remained tense, the weight of the moment still hanging heavy in the air. But something else was about to happen. Something nobody, not even Stephen, saw coming. Comment RASPT if you think Stephen handled this like a true leader. And stick around, because what happens next will change everything. Just when everyone thought it was over. Just when the tension was finally starting to ease and people were beginning to breathe again. The door opened one more time. A woman in a sharp business suit walked in, mid-40s, confident, moving with purpose. She wore a dark navy blazer, crisp white shirt, and carried a leather folder under her arm. Her heels clicked against the floor with military precision. Her eyes scanned the room quickly, professionally landing immediately on Stephen, Commander Seagal. Stephen turned. "That's me." She walked directly toward him, weaving between tables and stunned onlookers. "I'm Agent Marissa Cole, Department of Defense. I need to speak with you." Privately. The bar, which had just started to relax, went completely quiet again. Drop of in the comments if you did not see this coming. Stephen studied her for a moment, reading her body language, her credentials, the seriousness in her eyes. "All right." The colonel stepped forward. "Mom, is there something? This doesn't concern you, colonel." Respectfully. Her tone was polite but firm. "Final." The colonel nodded and stepped back. Stephen followed Agent Cole outside. Through the windows, everyone in the bar watched. The colonel stood near the glass, his jaw tight. A few other veterans moved closer, trying to read lips, trying to figure out what was happening. Danny stood frozen in place, still reeling from everything that had already happened, now completely lost. One of his buddies whispered, "What the hell is going on?" "I don't know, man. I don't know." Outside, Agent Cole opened the leather folder and showed Stephen something. His expression changed, just slightly, but those who knew him well would have caught it, a tightening around his eyes. A subtle shift in his posture. He nodded a few times. Asked a question. Listened carefully to her response. Then he looked back toward the bar, his gaze distant, thoughtful. After a few minutes, he shook her hand, and she walked back to a black sedan parked across the street. Stephen stood there for a moment longer, staring at the ground, processing. Then he turned and walked back inside. The energy in the bar had shifted again. Now it wasn't just tension. It was curiosity, confusion, concern. If you're on the edge of your seat right now, hit that like button. You know you want to. Stephen walked straight toward Danny. His face was more serious now. Different from before, not angry, but focused. "Stand up," he said quietly. Danny stood immediately, instinctively, his body responding before his brain even registered the command. Stephen stopped right in front of him. "You said you just came back from deployment. Where?" Danny swallowed. Iraq, sir. Anbar Province. What unit? 3rd Battalion, 7th Marines, sir. Stephen's eyes narrowed slightly, and something changed in his expression. It softened just barely, but it was there. "You were part of the convoy escort operations last month." Danny blinked, confused. "Yes, sir. How did you?" "My son was in that convoy." The room went completely, utterly silent. You could have heard someone's heartbeat. Danny's face went white. "What?" Stephen took a breath, his voice steady but carrying a weight that everyone could feel. "My son is a Marine. Staff Sergeant. He wrote me last week. Told me his convoy got hit by an I died outside Ramadi. Said a sergeant named Crow pulled him out of the vehicle before it went up in flames." Danny's eyes went wide. His mouth opened but no sound came out.
Wait.
His voice was barely a whisper. "Wait, Seagal. Staff Sergeant Seagal. That's him. Comment OOI Godi if your jaw just dropped." Danny staggered back half a step like he'd been physically pushed. "That was your son." His voice cracked. "That was, oh my God. Sir, I didn't know." He never said. He wouldn't. Stephen said simply. "He doesn't use my name. Doesn't want special treatment. Doesn't want anyone thinking he got where he is because of who his father is." Danny's hands started trembling. His breathing became uneven, and never told me. Never said a word. We were in the vehicle, and then the blast, and everything was on fire, and I just grabbed him and, his voice broke. "I just did what anyone would do." Stephen stepped closer. "No. You did what a Marine does, what a warrior does. You risked your life for your brother." Tears started forming in Danny's eyes. The tough guy from 10 minutes ago was gone. Now he just looked like a kid, scared, overwhelmed, realizing the weight of everything that had just happened. "Sir, I'm so sorry. For everything. For disrespecting you. For attacking you. For..." Stephen held up his hand. "You saved my son's life." The words hung in the air like a benediction. "Do you understand what that means? You brought him home. You gave him a future. You gave me more time with him." Danny couldn't speak anymore. The tears were flowing freely now. Stephen's voice was firm but kind. "So here's what's going to happen." Everyone in the bar leaned in slightly unconsciously. "You're going to sober up. You're going to report to your CO like the colonel said. You're going to write that apology, and you're going to learn from this." He paused. "But you're also going to remember something." "What, sir?" "That respect isn't about rank. It's not about fame or recognition or who you think someone is. It's about character. It's about how you treat people when you don't think it matters. Because it always matters." Danny nodded, wiping his eyes with the back of his hand. "Type Fargiveness if you believe in second chances." Stephen continued. "You made a mistake tonight. A bad one. But you also made a choice that saved a life. And that choice, that moment of courage and selflessness, that's what defines you. Not this. He gestured around the bar. You're a good Marine, Danny. You just need to remember what that means. Then Stephen extended his hand. Thank you for bringing him home. Danny stared at the hand for a moment, unable to believe this was happening. Then he reached out and shook it. His grip firm despite the tears still streaming down his face. Thank you, sir. He whispered. Thank you for giving me another chance. We all deserve one, Stephen said quietly. Don't waste it. The colonel, who had been watching from a few feet away, stepped forward. His expression had changed too. Less anger now, more understanding. Commander, that was gracious of you. Stephen shrugged. He's one of yours, Colonel. Take care of him. Help him become the Marine I know he can be. I will, sir. You have my word. Danny stood there, still holding Stephen's hand, not wanting to let go. Finally, Stephen gave him a small nod. Now go get some rest. You've had a long night. Yes, sir. Danny turned and walked toward the door, his buddies following silently behind him. But just before he left, he stopped and turned back. Sir. Stephen looked at him. Your son, he's a good man. One of the best I've ever served with. Stephen smiled, a real smile this time, warm and genuine. I know, and now I know why he's still alive. Thank you, Sergeant. Danny nodded one more time, then walked out into the night. If you're feeling emotional right now, drop a below. Let me know this story is hitting you where it counts. As the door closed, the old veteran from earlier called out, Commander. Stephen stopped and turned. The old man stood, raising his glass high. Once a SEAL, always a SEAL. Hoo-yah, sir. Stephen's smile widened. Hoo-yah. And with that, he walked out into the night, leaving behind a bar full of people who would never forget what they'd just witnessed. Not a fight, not a confrontation, but a lesson. Type a shiro in the comments if this gave you chills, and stay with me, we're not done yet. The best part is still coming. The next morning, Danny sat alone in his barracks. The room was small, sparse, just a bed, a locker, a desk with a lamp. Sunlight filtered through the blinds, casting stripes across the floor. His head was pounding, not just from the alcohol, though that didn't help, but from everything that had happened, from the weight of his actions, from the shame, from the realization of how close he'd come to destroying everything. He sat on the edge of his bed, elbows on his knees, head in his hands. The events of the previous night replayed over and over in his mind like a movie he couldn't turn off. The arrogance, the disrespect, the moment his fist flew toward Stephen's face, the humiliation of being pinned to the floor in front of everyone. And then the twist, the revelation. The realization that he'd attacked the father of the man whose life he'd saved. If you've ever had a moment where everything clicked and you realized you messed up bad, drop it in the comments. Danny picked up his phone with shaking hands, opened Instagram, hesitated for a moment, then typed into the search bar, Steven Seagal Navy SEAL. He hit enter, and there it was. Article after article, photo after photo. Testimonials from veterans who'd served with him, trained under him, been saved by him. One article from a military history site, the Hollywood star who actually served, Steven Seagal's hidden SEAL legacy. Another from a veteran's blog, Commander Seagal, the instructor who changed my life. A video interview with a retired SEAL. He never talked about it. Never bragged. That's how you knew it was real. The loud ones are usually full of it. But the quiet ones, the ones who don't need to prove anything, those are the dangerous ones. Danny scrolled through dozens of posts. Photos of Stephen in uniform, decades younger, standing with his unit, commendations, awards, letters of recommendation from commanding officers, testimonials from operators who credited him with teaching them the skills that kept them alive in combat. All of it confirmed. All of it real. Danny felt sick. He'd spent years mocking this man, making jokes about his movies, calling him a fake, dismissing him as just another Hollywood tough guy playing dress up. And the whole time, Steven Seagal had been the real thing. Had trained some of the most elite warriors on the planet. Had saved lives. Had served with honor. Had earned every ounce of respect Danny had refused to give him. Type right if you've ever judged someone without knowing their story. A knock on the door startled him. Danny quickly wiped his face and stood. Come in. The door opened. The colonel entered, his expression unreadable. Danny immediately stood at attention. Sir. 80s, Crow. Danny relaxed slightly, but his body was still tense, still braced for whatever punishment was coming. You sober? Yes, sir. Good. The colonel studied him for a moment. Because Commander Seagal left something for you. Danny's heart skipped a beat. Sir. The colonel reached into his jacket and pulled out an envelope. Plain. White. Nothing written on the outside. He handed it to Danny. Read it. Then we'll talk. Yes, sir. The colonel turned and walked out, closing the door behind him. Danny stood there for a moment, staring at the envelope in his hands. His fingers trembled as he opened it. Inside was a handwritten note, the handwriting neat, precise, disciplined, and a photograph. Danny unfolded the note first. Danny, you made a mistake last night, but you also made a choice that mattered more. You saved a life. Not just any life, my son's life, and that's what defines you. Not one bad night in a bar. Not one moment of drunken arrogance, but the moment when everything was on fire, when death was seconds away, and you didn't hesitate. You didn't think about yourself. You acted. That's what a Marine does. That's what a warrior does. Respect is earned in the moments when no one's watching. When there's no camera, no audience, no reward. You earned it in that convoy. You earned my respect. You earned my gratitude. Now earn your own. Stay humble. Stay strong. Remember why you serve. Semper Fi. Steven. Danny's hands shook as he read it. Then read it again. And again. Tears blurred his vision. He picked up the photograph. It showed Steven and a young man, mid-20s, Marine Corps uniform. Staff sergeant stripes on his sleeve. They had their arms around each other, both smiling. The resemblance was unmistakable. On the back of the photo, written in the same precise handwriting, my son Jake. Thanks to you, I still get to see this smile. S. If this is hitting you in the heart, drop a right now. Show some love. Danny sat down heavily on his bed, clutching the note in the photo. He folded the note carefully, reverently, and put it in his wallet. Right behind his military ID. A reminder. Not of shame, though he felt plenty of that, but of grace, of second chances, of what it truly means to be a warrior. For the first time in a long time, Danny felt something other than pride or anger or ego. He felt purpose. 3 months later, Friday night, the Iron Anchor. The bar was busy again, same music, same pool tables, same crowd of veterans and active duty personnel unwinding after a long week. Steven Seagal sat at the same corner table, same black shirt, same jeans, same glass of water. He'd been in town for a few days, visiting Jake, who was stationed nearby. Tonight, Jake was out with his unit, so Steven came to the bar alone, enjoying the quiet, the anonymity, the chance to just be without any expectations. The door opened. A man walked in, buzzed haircut, clean uniform, walking with a confidence that was different now. Not arrogant. Not loud, just steady. Danny Crow. He scanned the room and his eyes landed on Steven. For a moment, he hesitated. Then he took a breath and walked over. Slowly. Respectfully, he stopped a few feet from the table. Sir. Steven looked up and smiled, a genuine warm smile. Sergeant. Permission to sit, sir. Granted. And you can drop the sir. We're off duty. Danny sat down, but his posture was still respectful, still careful. I just wanted to say thank you. For the photo. For everything. Steven nodded. How have you been? Better, sir. Steven. He corrected himself, a small smile tugging at his lips. A lot better. Actually. Good, I'm glad to hear it. I finished the apology letters, sent one to you, to the colonel, to everyone who was here that night. I got it. Well written. Thank you. I meant every word. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment. Then Danny spoke again, his voice quieter now. I learned something that night. What's that? That the strongest people, the real warriors, they don't need to prove anything. They just are. Steven smiled. Took me a long time to learn that too. Really? Yeah. I was young once, made my share of mistakes. Had to learn humility the hard way. Danny looked surprised. I can't imagine you being anything but, well, like you are now. We all start somewhere, Danny. The key is what you do with the lessons. Comment Westham if you're learning something from this conversation. Danny nodded slowly, absorbing that. Can I buy you a drink? He asked. Water's fine. Steven said with a smile. Water it is. Danny waved to the bartender, the same ex-Navy guy from that night, who gave him a respectful nod and ordered 2 waters. They sat. They laughed. And for the first time in a long time, Danny felt like he understood what it meant to be a Marine. Not the uniform, not the rank, not the pride or the glory, but the responsibility, the discipline, the humility, the understanding that true strength doesn't shout, it listens, it learns, it lifts others up, especially when they've been knocked down. If this story is changing how you see strength and respect, type CNGD in the comments the lesson. Respect isn't something you give only to the famous. It's not something you reserve for the powerful, the wealthy, or the people who can do something for you. Respect is something you show to everyone, especially when you think no one's watching, especially when there's nothing in it for you, especially when the person in front of you looks ordinary, unassuming, unremarkable, because one day, the person you look down on might be the one you end up looking up to. If you agree with this, Type recipe in the comments right now. Let's flood this section with it. Steven Seagal never needed to prove who he was. He didn't walk into that bar wearing his medals. He didn't announce his rank. He didn't demand recognition. He just sat quietly, minding his own business, treating everyone with dignity, even when they didn't deserve it. And when he was disrespected, when he was mocked, when he was physically attacked, he didn't retaliate with ego. He didn't embarrass Danny more than necessary. He controlled the situation with precision, discipline, and restraint, the hallmarks of someone who's truly mastered their craft. And then, when he learned that this same young man who attacked him had saved his son's life, he didn't hold a grudge. He didn't make Danny grovel. He showed grace. Comment Giraci if you believe forgiveness is a sign of true strength. Because that's what real warriors do. They don't just fight. They protect. They don't just win. They teach. They don't just demand respect. They earn it through their actions, their character, their choices when no one's looking. Danny learned that night that strength isn't about how loud you are. It's not about how big your muscles are or how tough you talk, or how many people you can intimidate. Real strength is silent. Real strength is the ability to stay calm when everyone around you is losing control. Real strength is choosing mercy when you have every right to seek revenge. Real strength is lifting someone up after they've fallen, even if they're the one who tried to knock you down. If this lesson is resonating with you, drop it in the comments. Think about the last time you judged someone. Maybe it was someone at work who seemed lazy. Maybe it was a stranger on the street who looked homeless. Maybe it was someone online who said something you disagreed with. How quickly did you form your opinion? How much did you really know about them? Their story, their struggles, their sacrifices. We live in a world that judges instantly. A world that looks at appearances and makes assumptions. A world that values noise over substance, flash over character, popularity over principle. But the truth is this: the quietest person in the room might be the most dangerous. The most humble person might be the most accomplished. The one who says the least might have lived the most. Comment JDG not if you're going to think twice before making assumptions about people from now on. Steven Seagal could have destroyed Danny that night, not just physically, though we all saw how easily he controlled him, but socially, professionally, emotionally. He could have pressed charges, could have gotten him dishonorably discharged, could have made sure Danny's military career was over before it really began. But he didn't. Because he understood something that most people never learn. Punishment doesn't always teach. But grace does. Danny will remember that night for the rest of his life. Not because of the embarrassment. Not because of the pain. But because of the mercy. Because someone he wronged chose to see him not for his worst moment, but for his best one. And that changed everything. If you've ever been given a second chance that changed your life, share your story in the comments. Let's inspire each other. To you, the person watching this. Maybe you're watching this because you love a good story. Maybe you're here because you respect the military and want to honor those who serve. Maybe you're here because you've been judged unfairly. Or maybe because you've judged someone unfairly yourself. Whatever brought you here, I want you to take something away from this. Type recipe in the comments if you believe humility is real strength. Tell me where you're watching from. I want to thank every single person who took the time to watch this entire story. Drop your country, your city, your state. Let's see how far this message is spreading. Because this isn't just entertainment. This is a reminder. A reminder of what we should all strive to be: humble, strong, kind. A reminder that the world doesn't need more loud voices demanding attention. It needs more quiet warriors who lead by example. More people who choose grace over grudges. More people who see the best in others, even when others show them the worst. If you know someone who needs to hear this message, tag TM in the comments right now. Your friend who's going through a tough time. Your family member who's been judged unfairly. Your coworker who's struggling to find their purpose. Send them this video. Share this story. Because sometimes, the right message at the right time can change everything. Now, let's talk about what hit you the hardest. Was it the moment Steven revealed his past? Was it the twist when he said Danny saved his son? Was it the final act of forgiveness in the note he left? Or was it something else entirely? Comment below and let me know. Your feedback doesn't just help us make better content. It helps us understand what matters most to you. What lessons resonate? What stories need to be told? Drop a timestamp if there was a specific moment that gave you chills. And be honest. How far did you make it into this video before you hit the like button? If you haven't yet, what are you waiting for? smash that like button right now if this story moved you. Here's what's coming next. More incredible true stories of underdogs, heroes, and life-changing moments. Stories of people who stayed humble when they had every reason to be proud. Stories of second chances, redemption, and the power of doing the right thing when no one's looking. If you want more content like this, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Because the world needs more stories like Steven's. More reminders that true power doesn't announce itself. That real warriors don't need to prove anything. That the strongest among us are often the quietest. Comment subscribe if you just hit that button. Let me see that support. And if you made it this far, all the way to the end, you're the real MVP. Seriously. Most people don't have the attention span anymore. But you do. You stayed for the whole story. You absorbed the lesson. You engaged with the message. Comment I'm at TOTCN so I know who the real ones are. Before I let you go, one final thought. Steven Seagal walked out of that bar the same way he walked in, quietly, humbly, without fanfare. He didn't need anyone to know who he was. He didn't need applause or recognition or validation. Because he knew something most people spend their whole lives trying to learn. Your value doesn't come from what others think of you. It comes from what you do when no one's thinking of you at all. So the next time you're tempted to judge someone, the next time you're tempted to disrespect someone because they seem ordinary, the next time you think someone isn't worth your time or attention, remember this story. Remember Steven. Remember Danny. And remember that every single person you meet is fighting a battle you know nothing about. Treat them accordingly. Type kindness if you're committed to treating people better from now on.